So what do we have here? We have yet another live, because I figured I haven't done a live in a while. Let me switch it to live chat. And this was just going to be like an unplanned open chat. I'm attempting to make more videos and post them, and I'm probably going to make a video after I do this live, but I thought it might be interesting to interact yet again, have some questions answered. Not only does this inspire me to do other lives and topics that people are interested in, but it's just kind of cool to interact with folks as well. I figured if people don't jump in, I might just start reading my book. It's technically in the public domain. I mean, there's different translations of it, but I've been reading the Magus, and I keep putting it off because I keep playing video games and doing other stuff with my free time. I think that's one of the things that we have to keep in mind as just humans, that it's very easy to get distracted by other stuff. You know, we get lost in recreation and pastimes, and sometimes we forget to just sit out in nature, take a deep breath, and enjoy life. Now, I do like to go outside and sit down sometimes, but unfortunately I live in a very noisy neighborhood, so it kind of distracts from the relaxation of just sitting outside. When me and my wife first moved into our house, we used to be able to just sit on our porch, and it was quiet. And now there's always noise, and there's cars, and there's people playing music, and the rustle and bustle of life. I know it's still life, but it's sometimes you just want peace and quiet, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. Let me move my fan. There we go. Okay. So anyway, yeah, if folks want to come in and check things out, take a chat, ask a question. Mostly, I'm doing a lot of my videos, and most of my content on my channel is more focused towards spirituality. Now, I say neo-pagan because a lot of the stuff that I find most fascinating are things that are connected with the natural world and the natural way of being in the world. Reverence for nature and life in the universe, natural elements, things like that. I like science too, and I like history, but yeah, I'm going to talk about whatever I want on my channel. I usually do. That's just typically how it ends up going. I don't know. That's why I figured just any questions that come to mind, folks can ask, and if not, I might just read for a little bit. I used to do these regularly on Saturdays, or semi-regularly. I was starting to do them on a regular basis. And sometimes it's nice to have topics in advance, but I, again, like to hear a different perspective. There's a lot that I have read, reviewed, and looked through, but how much of it is true, as anyone who's been following my channel for any length of time knows, I'm now starting to dig into more and more sources, because if it doesn't come from a source, where did it come from? That's kind of a trick question there. Of course it came from a source. It came from somewhere. We heard it from somewhere. Sometimes it's just hearsay or common things that are within the culture that you grow up in. We hear things repeated all the time, not knowing exactly where they came from. And I'm trying to change that. I'm trying to look and see where they came from, especially when we start talking about stuff like neo-paganism. People seem to be drawn to it because they have some problem with the mainstream religions that are out there. And the interesting thing is, I have a tendency to defend a lot of the Christian paths, because a lot of the people that I know that are Christian are very good people. And some of the core beliefs that they have are not bad beliefs. Some of the morals and morality that they have, I think, are standard human morals. But I have a tendency to not care much for the religion itself. So even though I defend Christians and I defend their right to practice, and I always will, the religion's not for me. And it's just, I don't sync with it. And I don't sync with it for many reasons. I think the individuals, and that's the interesting thing, the more people I talk with that end up being some sort of monotheistic faith, have a tendency to believe without actually studying their scriptures. That seems to be very common. I know a lot of Christians do not go to any form of a church, whether they belong to one or not. They don't go to regular services, and they don't read their Bible or book, whatever scripture that is. I mean, if they're Jewish, reading some of the Jewish manuscripts, like the Torah, I think is one of them. I think they got like 6 or 7 different ones. Or even people that proclaim to be Norse pagan, talking about some of the neo-pagan revival reconstruction stuff, don't read the sagas or the Eddas. And it's surprising to me. Now, I have noticed that people who tend to be a little bit more spiritual and serious about their path end up being individuals who are neo-pagan, because they did deep dive into their religion they were brought up in, and they decided it wasn't for them for some reason, or they just felt wrong, so they were looking for spirituality, and they looked elsewhere until they found something that just worked for them. So it's all about seeking. I think on a whole, I think as humans, we're just seekers. We're just looking for answers. So last part I highlighted in my book here was, for fire is hot and dry earth. For fire is hot and dry earth, cold and dry. Oh, I see. It's saying fire is hot and dry, earth is cold and dry, water cold and moist, and air hot and moist. So in this manner, the elements, according to two contrary qualities, are opposite one to the other, as fire to water and earth to air. Likewise, the elements are contrary one to the other, and another account. Two are heavy, as earth and water, and the others are light, as fire and air. Therefore, the Stoics called the former passives, but the latter actives. That's interesting. I remember looking up, see, that's the other reason I kind of end up reading a lot of stuff off of the Kindle, is you can usually hold your finger down on it, and then you can search to see what it's for. So holding my finger over Stoics, it'll pull up like dictionary definition stuff, because last time I remember seeing Stoics was actually in a video game. And a Stoic was someone who, like, if you pursued physical combat and magic in the game, they considered you a Stoic. So it was like a multi-talented individual. So I'm kind of curious what it says here. Stoicism is a school of Hellenistic philosophy that flourished in ancient Greece and ancient Rome. The Stoics believe that the practice of virtue is enough to achieve eudaimonia, a well-lived life. The Stoics identified the path to achieve it with a life spent practicing the four virtues in everyday life: wisdom, courage, temperance, and moderation. Well, that's kind of cool. Stoics. So there's like, that's just what it instantly pulls up. And of course, it's not giving me the dictionary. I can download dictionary. Can I download it? How long is that going to take? Of course, I'm connected to my local Wi-Fi and stuff, so as I'm talking about this, I'm seeing people join into the live. Feel free to ask any question that comes to mind. It doesn't have to be on this topic. Stoic, a person who can endure pain or hardship without showing their feelings or complain. A member of the ancient philosophical school of Stoicism. Another term for stoical, of or belonging to the Stoics, of their school of philosophy. Interesting. So I guess it was used a little bit differently in the game. I'm trying to remember the name of that game. It was actually a lot of fun. It was an online game. Ultima Online, that's what it was. I haven't seen that in a while. So therefore, the Stoics called the former passives and the latter actives. So the former being the heavies, which was earth and water, and then the others being light, as in fire and air, which kind of makes sense in the fact of, if you think about, both air and flame have no weight to them, like you have weight with water or earth. You have to have a container, of course, to carry them in, but if you fill a cup with water or earth, it's going to be weighted down versus something just filled with air or filled with fire. So that's an interesting way of looking at it. I'm going to highlight that section too, because I kind of like that. I might want to go back to that. So that's, again, this is one reason why I like to read through this. Although I actually recently saw some people complaining about Kindle books, because apparently if Amazon decides you have violated their terms of service for any reasons, they can pull all of your books, all of your access. You could spend thousands of dollars in the books, and they're like, nope, not yours anymore. We're giving you access to them. I do like the notes, though. And Plato distinguishes them after another manner and assigns to each of them three qualities, viz., to the fire, brightness, thinness, and motion; to the earth, darkness, thickness, and quietness. And according to these qualities, the elements of fire and earth are contrary. Now, the other elements borrow their qualities from these, so that the air receives two qualities from the fire, thinness and motion, and the earth one, viz., darkness. In this manner, water receives two qualities of the earth, darkness and thickness, and the fire one, viz., motion. But fire is twice as thin as air, thrice more movable, and 4 times brighter. The air is twice more bright, thrice more thin, and 4 times more movable. That's interesting. So it's starting out with qualities belonging specifically to fire and earth, which are, they're saying, are the opposites, one light, one thin, and then saying that water and air borrow qualities from these two. Therefore, as fire is to air, so is air to water, and water to earth, and again, as the earth is to water, so is water to air, and air to fire. And this is the root and foundation of all bodies, natures, and wonderful works. And he who can know and thoroughly understand these qualities of the elements and their mixtures shall bring to pass wonderful and astonishing things in magic. The whole section's interesting. See, sometimes, like, there's different ways of reading books. You can just kind of, like, read through them and get what you can. And sometimes I like to take notes and highlight things and then kind of review them later and think about it and contemplate it. Talking about how the elements borrow qualities from each other. To me, I almost want to go and map it out and diagram it, right? Give myself a visual representation of what I'm talking about. Or reading about, specifically in this case. And this is how Plato distinguishes them. I guess Plato the philosopher, right? Right. After manner, assigns each of them 3 qualities. Oh, so he's referring to 3 qualities as viz. No, I want that to be highlighted. I'm not looking that up. Cool. Oops. Apparently, if you highlight enough, it doesn't need you to click what color you want to highlight it with. It's kind of interesting. Borrow qualities from these. I can read on my web browser as well as my Fire tablet and then my Kindle White, so having different things to read on. Alright, so what do we got here? So we have... Let's take some notes. I like notes. Do you like notes? Legend, Abracadabra, Melos, Marcarum, the elements, alchemical symbols. Ooh, I can add this section to the elements because I've got a section on elements. The Magus. Elements. Chapter 1. Aha. That's why I like to write things out sometimes. Visualize it differently. Interesting. That's an interesting way of thinking about it. I kind of want to go up to the other... Did I get to the other fire part yet, or is that... that's in a different book. That elemental part was in a different book, because we're still in chapter 1. We're in chapter 1 of the 4 elements and their natural qualities. So I was putting down some of the notes based upon what I had highlighted in the book. All right, so this is a different way of viewing it. Chapter 1 of the 4 elements. So fire is hot and dry, earth cold and dry, water cold and moist, air hot and moist. So we have hot and cold properties, dry and moist properties. And the Stoics called the former passives, but the latter actives. So passives would be fire and earth. Let me put a note there on this too, make it easier to read. Fire and earth. The latter actives. Water and air. Plato distinguishes them after another manner and assigns to each of them 3 qualities, which they're calling viz. I wonder why they're calling it viz. V-I-Z with a period, as if it's a short for something else. Fire has... did I spell thinness wrong? I copied it out of the book. I did. Left off an N. Good typing skills there. Okay. So fire has brightness, thinness, and motion. Those are the 3 vizes, according to Plato. And earth has darkness, thickness, and quietness. So making them complete opposites, because brightness versus darkness, thinness versus thickness, motion versus quietness. And then according to these qualities, the elements fire and air, earth are contrary, because they're opposites, right? The other elements borrow their qualities from these. So these 6 are the qualities. Now air takes 2 from fire, thinness and motion, but 1 from earth, which is darkness. And then water takes 2 qualities from earth, which is darkness and thickness, and 1 quality from fire, which is motion. So it takes the opposite. So again, water and air are opposite to each other, but they're taking properties of the other ones. And those aren't necessarily complete opposites. I mean, the thinness and thickness are the only things that are different, but they're both in motion and dark. They both have the viz of darkness and motion. Whereas fire and earth are complete opposites. The 6 combine in different ways to make air and water. So air and water are almost the same. Thinness, thickness, darkness, darkness, motion, motion. Yeah, that's interesting. Very interesting to think about. I like this stuff. And if you've come here to hang out and check things out, then you probably enjoy this stuff too. If you were catching this live after as a recording, feel free to jump into the comments and leave your thoughts below. All right. Now each of these elements have a 3-fold consideration, so that the number of 4 may make up the number of 12. And by passing by the number of 7 into 10, there may be a progress to the supreme unity upon which all virtue and wonderful things do depend. Of the first order are the pure elements, which are neither compounded, changed, or mixed, but an incorruptible and not of which, but through which the virtues of all natural things are brought forth to act. No man is able to fully declare their virtues, because they can do all things upon all things. He who remains ignorant of these shall never be able to bring to pass any wonderful manner. See, now I'm kind of curious. I don't remember this being at the beginning of my other copy of the Magus. See, why is it taking me straight to the book? I want to go to my... yeah, I gotta have to click somewhere else in here then. Alright, so if I click off to the side maybe? No. Oh, we're jumping through. We don't want to jump through. Oof, jumped way down there, didn't we? Darn it. Let's drag it all the way back up to the top. Okay, at least I'm in the first chapter. It'll be easy to find again. Whenever I'm sitting in the light, sitting outside, I like to sit at my Kindle White, but whenever I'm sitting inside, it's better to use my Amazon Fire tablet because it glows and I can see it in the dark better. And I can also zoom in. Really nice as my eyes get older and I have trouble seeing smaller print to look at something a little bit on the larger side. Silly Blaze. Tricks are for kids. I have two versions of this book. I don't remember reading that section in a different version of the book. Oh, this is the section. Yeah. I don't remember rereading this time. Did I jump to chapter 1 and go past Francis Barrett? Because I remember reading this whole section on God from Francis Barrett, which I always thought was fascinating because it seemed like different and distracting. But then I also got into where it was starting to talk about some of the spells. That was in chapter 2. So maybe I've foregone this whole section. That's interesting. Yeah. A prayer or ordination to God. Almighty and most merciful God, we thy servants approach with fear and trembling before thee, and in all humility do most heartily beseech thee to pardon our manifold and blind transgressions by us committed at any time. And it's so interesting to see something like this in a book like this. But this is the reality of where some of this stuff comes from. I still don't remember the section on natural magic. So what section is this then that I'm in right now? This is chapter 1. First Principles of Natural Magic, book the first. Did I jump to one of the other books? See, now I'm very confused. Now I'm curious. Did I jump to one of the other books? So let me go to the very top again. Let's go through, because this stuff is looking a little bit more familiar because I remember reading the natural magic part. That's where I had left off. Natural magic. So what is this down here? Oh, I jumped to book part 2, chapter 1. Ah, ha, ha! Good to know. I was wondering why none of this sounded familiar. I'm like, this is some pretty cool stuff. Don't remember reading this stuff before. Oh, I've already got notes. We got some notes on it. Okay. This is why it's always good to double check where you're at. I got this collection of, which is like 3 parts to the Magus, because apparently there's 3 different parts. And the original part that I was reading was part 1. So that chapter 1 was a little bit different than this one. There's a preface here. There's an introduction to the study of magic. Kind of excited to get to the part 2 now, but got to go back and finish part 1 because I had started on part 1 and I was like, I don't remember reading about any of this stuff before, so I'm like, definitely need to take notes here, and go figure it's because I accidentally jumped ahead. Now, there's supposed to be a fourth book, but yeah. Ah, so the preface is actually written by Francis Barrett, who's the author of the book. So the preface. In this work, which we have written chiefly for the information of those who are curious and indefatigable in their inquiries into occult knowledge, we have at vast labor and expense, both of time and charges, collected whatsoever can be deemed curious and rare in regard to the subject of our speculation in natural magic. And then he defines natural magic here, which is interesting as well. Let me put a highlight here. All right. Natural magic, the Kabbalah, celestial and ceremonial magic, alchemy, and magnetism, and have divided it into 2 books, subdivided into parts, to which we have added a 3rd book containing a biographical, okay, broken on 2 different lines, okay? Give me a break here. Biographical account of the lives of those great men who were famous and renowned for their knowledge, skewing upon his authority the science of magic. See, he also mixes science and magic. I knew I wasn't crazy. It's not just me. There are other crazy ones who've lived before me, whose authority this science of magic is founded, and upon what principles, to which we have annexed a great variety of notes, wherein we have impartially examined the probability of the existence of magic, both of the good and bad species. In the earliest as well as in the latter ages of the world, we have exhibited a vast number of rare experiments in the course of this treatise, many of which, delivered in the beginning, are founded upon the simple application of actives to passives. The others are of a higher speculation. In our history of the lives of philosophers, we have omitted nothing that can be called interesting or satisfactory. We have taken our historical characteristics from those authors most deserving of credit. We have given an outline of the various reports, tradition gives of them, to which are annexed noted, drawn from the most probable appearance of truth, impartially describing their characters and actions, leaning neither to the side of those who doubt everything, nor to them who crudely takes in every report to be circumstantially true. See, why don't more people review and think of religion, spirituality, and magic in this fashion? It is possible to be somewhere in between, and I find myself feeling what this book is saying, because that's kind of how I view it. There is magic. Magic is real. That's something I personally believe, but there's a balance of what magic is capable of doing. There is natural magic that's part of the natural world and how it works. And I borrow definitions for what magic is from individuals like Heinrich Agrippa, or individuals who, like Francis Barrett, who've put this stuff together to give us the definitive definition of what magic is. And it is natural. It's part of the natural world and the way of working with it. In fact, I've got a Friday vlog that I've been doing. Like I said, I've been trying to do more, and I've got one that'll be coming out that'll be discussing magic further. But this is kind of cool to see something like this, because sometimes people go to the extreme. Either they're skeptics and don't believe in any of it, or they're individuals who believe anything is possible, and it's just, there's an in-between. Yeah, not everything is possible, and not everything magic claims to be able to do is possible. People think magic is this far-fetched thing that you will see in fantasy. But then there's other people who are like, none of it's possible at all. And I think it's somewhere in between. I really do. I think we need to analyze this in a scientific way. One of the quotes that I've recently been bringing up is, yesterday's magic is today's science. And I did some research recently. I'm also have this coming up in a video on a Friday in the future, past when this live is being done. I already recorded it. It's just sitting in a queue. This way I have a release of videos every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tune in. You'll like it. Anyway, quotes. Let's see. So today's science is yesterday's magic. Alan Dean Foster. Yesterday's magic is today's science, and today's magic is tomorrow's science. Mitesh Khatri. From The Law of Attraction, master the universal energy to unleash your potential. They're nice quotes, so I like them, so I use them because I think they kind of fit in there. I do have live chat off to the side. Like I said, if you are just now tuning in, feel free to jump into the chat. So far, I have not read any comments because nothing has come up. But if you're watching this after the fact, I really do see people are watching. There are some people that are coming into view. So I'm not just talking to myself, which I don't mind. But part of the live is to engage with the audience. So again, feel free to jump in. At this time, the abstruse science of nature begin to be more investigated than for a century past, during which space they have been almost totally neglected. But men becoming more enlightened, they begin to consider the extraordinary effects that were wrought by ancient philosophers in ages that were called dark, like the Dark Ages and stuff like that. Makes sense to me. Not to mention the fact that, I've made that argument before that modern science, and this is that whole, yesterday's magic is today's science. That whole theory, the way I look at it, is you had these philosophers, these spiritual individuals, these priests, these wise, educated individuals that lived in these tribes and clans and in societies, and what they dared to dream and believe and experimented with was studied further until we got into modern science. So that's really, I feel like it's connected. I really do. Many, therefore, have thought that time, nature, causes, and effects begin the same, with the additional improvements of mechanical and liberal arts. We may, with their knowledge of nature, surpass them in the producing of wonderful effects, for which cause many men are naturally impelled, without education or other advantage, to dive into the contemplation of nature. But the study thereof being at first difficult, they have recourse to lay out a great deal of money in collecting various books, to remedy which inconvenience and expense an author undertook to compose the Magus, presuming that this labors herein will meet with general approbation? What does approbation mean? Yeah, sometimes I learn some new stuff too. Again, dictionary stuff. Approval or praise. Okay. With the general approbation of either the novitiate. What is a novitiate? The period of state of being a novice. Okay, the novitiate or adept, for whose use and instruction it is now published. But to return to the subject of our book, we have in the first part fully explained what natural magic is, and have shown that by the application of actives to passives, many wonderful effects are produced that are merely natural and done by manual operations. Science, right? We have produced or procured everything that was valuable and scarce respecting this departure of our work, which we have introduced under the title of Natural Magic, and a variety of our experiments. Likewise, in the possession of this work, the laborious and diligent student will find a complete and delectable companion, so that he who has been searching for years for this author and the other will in this book find the marrow of them all. Marrow, like bone marrow, like the substance, the essence of, But I would advise that we do not depend too much upon our own wisdom in the understanding of these mysteries, for all earthly wisdom is foolishness in the esteem of God. Seriously, I'm dead serious. I'm reading the page. It is, and I think that's the thing. A lot of people get this whole thing, whether you're Christian or not, they get this assumption, they hear the word God and they instantly think, oh, well, this is the Christian God, Jesus Christ and all that kind of stuff. But is it? Got a video on that coming up too. If you look up the Catechism of the Catholics, it's interesting to the way people use the word God today versus what they used to in the past. Coming down on a Friday. I'm serious. Check it out. It's going to be good stuff. I mean, all the wisdom of man, which he pretends to draw from any other source than God alone. We came next to the second part of our first book, treating of the art called the constellatory practice, or talismanic magic, in which we fully demonstrate the power and efficiency of talismans, so much talked of and so little understood by most men. Ooh. See, I've always understood the word talisman to be an object of magical power. So a talisman could be created, or it could be something natural that you found that has magical power in it. So what do I mean by magical power? What I mean by that is like something that you can draw on or use within some form of ceremonial ritual magic. Now, the difference from an amulet to a talisman is something that's supposed to hold magical power, where an amulet serves like a talisman that is specifically focused on protection. That's the way I understand it. Don't directly quote me because I don't have the sources pulled up, because this is a live where I'm just rambling. So, you know, you're here checking out some of my thoughts. So here you go. Here's some random thoughts. Let's see. Where did I leave off? Let's go back a little bit. Or talismanic magic, in which we fully demonstrate the power and efficiency of talismans, so much talked of and so little understood by most men. We therefore explain in the clearest and most intelligible manner how talismans may be made for the execution of various purposes, and by what means, and from what source they become vivified. I think vivified means like awakened or brought about, like to use, right? To activate. Enliven or animate. I was right. Look, that's a word that's part of my vocabulary. I just forgot. And I questioned myself. It's always good to question yourself. And are visible instruments of great, wonderful effects. We likewise skew the proper and convenient times under what constellations and aspects of the planets they are to be formed, and the time when they are most powerful to act. And in the next place, we have taught that our own spirit is the vehicle of celestial attraction, transferring celestial and spiritual virtue into seals, images, amulets, rings, papers, glasses, etc. Also, we have not forgot to give the most clear and rational illustration of sympathy and antipathy. Let's look that one up. Antipathy, a deep-seated feeling of dislike. Ooh. Sympathy and antipathy. There's a new one. Attraction and repulsion. So, rereading that with the words. To give the most clear and rational illustration of sympathy and antipathy, attraction and repulsion. We have likewise proven how curses are performed by virtue of sympathetic powers, and medicines by seals, rings, and amulets, even at unlimited distances, which we have been witness of and are daily confirmed in the true and certain belief of. We know how to communicate with any person and to give him intimation. To give him, I was going to say intimidation. That's not intimidation. Intimation, an indication or hint. Okay, to give him intimation of our purpose at 100 or 1,000 miles distance, but then a preparation is necessary, and the parties should have their appointed seasons and hours for that purpose. Likewise, both should be of the same firm consistency of mind and a discipline or brother in the arts. Ooh, brother in the arts. How do you like that? And we have given methods whereby a man may receive true and certain intimations, we'll just learn that word, of future things by dreams, of whoever or whatsoever his mind has before meditated upon, himself being properly disposed. Likewise, we have recited the various methods used by the ancients for the invocation of astral spirits by circles, crystals, etc., their forms of exorcism, incantations, orinations, bonds, conjurations, and have given a general display of the instruments of their art. I almost said act. All of which we have collected out of the works of the most famous magicians, such as, hey, here we go, here's a list, and I'm gonna... See, these are people that I've been wanting to read more books about, right? Highlighting it really quick, because that's a note to go back to. Of the most famous magicians, such as Zoroaster. So Zoroaster is a figure from Zoroastrianism, and Zoroastrianism is one possible source of where the term magic comes from, because it was used to define what the Zoroastrian priests, and they would have come over from, they would have been pre-Jewish and pre-Christian, and it would have been the same area that Zoroaster had come from. So Zoroastrianism apparently still exists today. But their ceremonial magic is apparently what is used as a template or groundwork for ceremonial magic as it's used in today neo-pagan polytheism type arcane spellcraft. I mean, technically Christians do it too. So modern occult practices, modern magic, ritual magic apparently comes out of Zoroastrianism. Hermes. Hermes is, of course, is a deity, I believe Greek. Isn't Hermes a Greek deity? Hermes, the god. Yep, Greek. Okay. So Hermes is a Greek deity, and Hermes is actually part of a book that apparently is a book of magic. They kind of combine two different deities, Thoth and Hermes, into Hermes Trismegistus. Anyway, there's a very famous magic book that apparently he was responsible for writing. The figure never existed because it's supposed to be a compilation of two other characters and individuals. And that's the root of the Hermetic practices. So Hermeticism, which apparently supposedly predates some of the monotheistic practices, Hermes Trismegistus, there you go, which means Hermes the thrice greatest. And this is not a historical figure, it's a mix of the god Thoth and the god Hermes. Many consider them to be the same or equal to each other. So Hermes in Greek and Thoth in Egyptian. Good evening, Alum Bristrick. Welcome to the live. Always good to check your notes. See, usually I think I'm right, but if I'm doing a video, especially if I'm doing a video, I gotta check beforehand, right? Taking more notes. Notes are good. I used to just take a paper notebook, like people used to call them Book of Shadows, like it's like a magical journal type of a deal. That's one word that was used, especially with the big Wiccan boom. But my notebooks, when you rewrite it, your handwriting gets bad. I type it out, and then I can copy, paste, edit, push extra notes in there. So Zoroaster, Hermes, Apollonius. I don't know who Apollonius is. Simon of the Temple. I wonder if that's the same Simon. Simon the Mage, no, that's Arabellum the Mage. Simon. I know there's a Simon that was mentioned. Anyway, Tritimus, Agrippa. We talked about Agrippa. Heinrich Agrippa actually has a collection of books which is based around magic philosophy, and I really want to read that series. Now, there is a Kindle version which I've purchased, but there's a new version that's on Amazon. The Kindle version's $100, but the physical copy is like $165 US. I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna get this text. It looks absolutely amazing. Let me give you the actual title in case anybody's interested in it. I've got it in my cart because I'm gonna buy it. Not right now, but I'm gonna buy it. I need to get through the maggots first. Let's see, 3 books of occult philosophy by Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa. And it looks absolutely amazing. And this is a translation by Eric Perdue. So let me paste that in the comments here for anyone who wants to check that out. But that's supposed to be like one of the but supposedly the Magus also draws upon that because this is a modern translation of an older book. So apparently a lot of the stuff in the Magus is supposed to be there as well. I don't need to copy the part. It says hardcover. There you go. 3 books of occult philosophy by Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa, who's the author, and then Eric Perdue is the translator. So this translation is worth a lot because I guess Eric Perdue apparently translated this so it's easier to comprehend by the modern occult practitioner or scholar or seeker of knowledge. Doesn't matter what you are if you have any interest. What's on your mind, Alum? Feel free to jump in if you have questions. This is supposed to be a live where people ask questions, but nobody was asking questions for the last 45 minutes. I've just been reading my book and commenting on it. So hopefully, since people are checking it out, they enjoy my comments. Porta, the Neapolitan? No idea. John Dee. So John Dee was a magician who apparently, I think Queen Elizabeth, was part of Queen Elizabeth's court. Let me look up John Dee. I did a video on him recently too, or at least mentioned him in one of my videos. 16th century English mathematician, astrologer, and alchemist. Queen Elizabeth I. Yep, I was right. Boom! Look at that. It's like I know some things. Porcilius, Roger Bacon, and a great many others. So I highlighted that in blue because that's a little bit of my highlighted note there, so you can kind of see that, yeah. There you go. To which we have subjoined our notes. Okay. Enduring to point out the difference of these arts so as to free the name of magic from any scandalous imputations. Imputations. I think that's just like basically kind of give it a bad name, right? Represent as being done, caused, or possessed by someone to something by interference with the value of the product or process. Interesting. All to say that it's possessed with scandalous intent. That makes sense. Because, yeah, historically, magic has been used for a great many things that are bad. Just fixing some food and listening to you, no questions. Yeah, no problem, no problem. Always nice for you to hang out. Thank you for saying hi. Hopefully you're enjoying your snack, your meal, your food. Seeing it is a word originally significative, not of any evil, but of every good and laudable science, such as a man might profit by, and become both wise and happy. And the practice so far being offensive to God or man, that the very root or ground of all magic takes its rise from the Holy Scriptures. Viz., the fear of God is the beginning of all wisdom. Interesting. And charity is the end, which fear of God is the beginning of magic. For magic is wisdom, and on this account the wise men were called magi. I thought magi too. I think that's from Zoroastrianism. The original term of using the word magi is like Persian or something. But there was a group of individuals. They even have magi in the Christian mythology collection known as the Bible. That's not meant to insult Christians. I call everything mythology. That it's the Christian myths. I mean, that's their collection of myths, is their Bible. So, but I believe there's even magi in there, and at least in the translations. I don't know if it's in the original Hebrew or not, because I don't speak Hebrew and I don't read Hebrew. So when I look at the Christian Bible and I study that, I take translations. So, but that's interesting. Again, it's interesting to hear how much Francis Barrett mentions God and Christ in this. The magicians were the first Christians, for by their high and excellent knowledge, they knew that Savior which was promised was not born man, that Christ was our Redeemer, Advocate, and Mediator. They were the first to acknowledge his glory and majesty. Therefore, let no one be offended at the venerable and sacred title of magician, a title which every wise man merits while he pursues that path which Christ himself trod. Humility, charity, mercy, fasting, praying, etc. For the true magician is the truest Christian and nearest discipline of our blessed Lord, who set the example we ought to follow. For he says, if ye have faith, and this kind comes not by fasting and prayer, and ye shall tread upon scorpions, and again be wise as serpents, and harmless as doves. Such instructions as these are frequently named, given in many places of the Holy Scriptures. Likewise, all the apostles confess the power of working miracles through faith in the name of Christ Jesus. Christ is actually a title, interestingly enough. Like, a lot of people will say the term Jesus Christ, but Christ isn't even from biblical era so first of all, it's not really Jesus, right? It's Yeshua. So Yeshua ben Yosef, or Yeshua bar Yosef, depending on if it's Aramaic or Hebrew that you're using. Christ comes out of the Greek word Christos, which means like anointed one. So back then they actually have a word which translates in the modern English as Messiah. So originally Yeshua was referred to as the Messiah based upon their Bible, which is interesting because a lot of people just don't know that. How much you know about Book of Enoch and why church have banned this book? Very little. So I've heard of the Book of Enoch, and I've heard supposedly that there is some stuff that talks about magic, arcane type of things, and working with angels. And I don't know why the church banned it. So I don't know yet, but that is something that I definitely want to dig into eventually. So, do you know a lot about it? and that all wisdom is to be obtained through him, for he says, I am the light of the world. We have thought it advisable, likewise, to investigate the power of numbers, their sympathy with the divine names of God, and seemingly the whole universe was created by number, weight, and measure. There is no small efficiency in numbers, because nothing more clearly represents the divine essence to human understanding than numbers. Seeing that in all the divine holy names there is still a conformity of numbers, so that the conclusion of this, our first book, forms a complete system of mathematical magic, in which I have collected a vast number of curious seals from that famous magician Agrippa, and likewise from Paracelsus, noting them particularly as I have found them correspondent with true science on experiment. Again, very interesting, because I could have no, never mind. Heinrich Agrippa was also a Christian, because he was from the 15th and 16th century. It was Hermes Trismegistus from the Hermetic stuff. That is the stuff that predates Christianity. But a lot of these magicians from the past were Christians. So a lot of modern spiritual practice that's arcane or occult comes out of Christian scholars. But likewise, more research that I do in the way that they think about God, I've seen some things like, again, the Catechism from the Catholics, that's basically stating that they kind of view God very similar to how neo-pagans view God, as this universal energy force that is beyond our comprehension in a way. Now, neo-pagans might separate this greater force, this entity, this being that is everywhere, and a lot of the magicians believe that that divine spark that the Christians call God is inside of us, that we are manifestations of God. That's why we're alive. And the world is manifestation. It has the divine spark. Nature has it, and you learn how to work with that divinity inside. That's that part of that natural magic. That's what a lot of them believe, but that doesn't coincide with the way every Christian views the world, because a lot of Christians to this day consider magic to be evil and wrong. Interesting. But it's interesting to hear Christians from the past that looked at these individuals. Sometimes it's older than Christianity. Sometimes it's been kept alive because of Christianity, and to give their own account of it. So yeah, that famous magician Agrippa. And likewise from Paracelsus, I read that part, as I found them correspondent with true science or experiment. The second book forms a complete treatise on the mysteries of the Kabbalah and ceremonial magic. So Kabbalah, now here's something to point out. He puts it with a C, and I found this out recently. So apparently there's 3 ways of spelling Kabbalah. With a K, with a C, and with a Q. If it's with a K, it's the original Jewish Kabbalah. If it's with a C, like in this book, it's the Christian Kabbalah. And if it's with a Q, it is the neo-pagan Kabbalah. Interesting, huh? And I can't... Where did I learn that? I got to quote sources. I hate not giving sources. It drives me nuts. I think... I want to say it was Dr. Puka. So Angela Puka, Angela Symposium on YouTube. I think she was doing an interview with an individual who was an expert in the Kabbalah stuff. And in that interview, I think he's the one who said it. And she's first of all, she has a doctorate degree in this, like where she studies religion and spiritual practice and stuff. But apparently there's another site that I got it from too, because this also says the same thing. Where's this? This is Encyclopedia. So encyclopedia.com also has it, where it mentions the 2 different types of Kabbalah and the different spellings for it. Interesting. But I think Angela Symposium also had it as well. I just don't remember what video it is off the top of my head. So if you check it out, let her know you heard about it from me. I sent you there. Ceremonial magic, by the study of which a man who can separate himself from material objects by the mortification of the sensual appetite, abstain from drunkenness, gluttony, and other bestial passions, and who lives pure and temperate, free from those actions which degenerate a man to a brute, may become a recipient of divine light and knowledge, by which they may foresee things to come, whether to private families or kingdoms or states, empires, battles, victories, and likewise be capable of doing much good to their fellow creatures, such as the healing of all disorders and assisting with the comforts of life the unfortunate and distressed. which again is kind of interesting. I'm going to stop here. I think this video is getting on long enough. It's almost been an hour, and I like to try to keep my lives to an hour, which I think is interesting because, again, it's like it brings up this idea of keeping your body pure temple, honoring its divinity, and then you're able to tap into that divine light. And in a lot of Christian practice, a lot of them will talk about Jesus being the way, the truth, and the light. I've heard the phrase. I don't know where it comes from. I just know it's some sort of Christian phrase. I'll hunt down origins for that too. Every time I hear something now, I want to hunt it down because I've seen and read so much that people just say as hearsay and nobody knows the source or origin. And I want to acknowledge that source or origin. I want to know where this stuff originally came from. So, anywho, that's what I got for today. Any final closing comments, thoughts, concerns? And as always, like I said, if you're catching this after the fact, thank you for sitting through 56 minutes of me talking to myself and reading a book. And leave your comments below. Leave your thoughts. You know, if you've started reading the Magus, and if you haven't started reading the Magus, are you going to? What do you think of it? It's good stuff? All right. Anyway, thank you for hanging out. You take care, and I will catch you in the next one.